So, good evening, everyone. So, as these deadlines really start to approach and you're filling out your applications, it's really important to understand how the college admissions landscape has changed. For younger students, there have been many different policy changes that will be affecting college admissions for years to come. We're going to discuss all those and make sure that you guys understand what each of these policy changes might mean for you and your college applications. But before we get going too far, we're going to introduce ourselves and tell you why you should be listening to our advice, and tell you a little bit about our company before we jump into the content. So my name is Lindsay, and I'm a counselor here at MoonPrep. I've worked as a writer and as an SAT tutor for about 5 years. I work one-on-one with students to help them raise their academic profile. My passion really is helping students create a compelling personal statement and help them emerge as a stronger writer. So I do a lot of the writing here at MoonPrep and have interviewed admissions officers, colleges, medical schools, competitive students, as well as other leaders in the university and medical school admission industry. And so if you have any questions, just a reminder, feel free to start sending them in that Q&A portion, and we'll get to those at the end, and in the middle kind of stop along. But I'll let Michaela take over from here.
Perfect. My name is Michaela, and I'm also one of the counselors at MoonPrep. Previously, I worked as a staff writer for a company that owned multiple national magazines, and also as an admissions counselor at a Big Ten university. So I've been the one right in the seat reading hundreds, probably thousands actually, of these admissions essays. So I kind of have the unique perspective of having been the one on the other side of the essays and applications. And now I have an author page on niche.com and spend my time working as an independent counselor through MoonPrep. And just a little bit about MoonPrep so you know who we are and what we're doing. MoonPrep is made up of a team of independent college counselors who work with students virtually and guide them through not only the college process, but also high school too. So any question you have about courses you should be taking to make your academic goals happen, this is the place. We're the people to ask. The counselors at MoonPrep serve as a guide and mentor to our students. We are helping our younger students or underclassmen select the right classes for their future major. We're helping them narrow down their career interests to choose a major. And we're also helping our younger students find summer research opportunities or even internships or shadowing experiences to really help them build a resume for their future goals. We are really doing everything we can to help students build their strongest possible applicant profile so that when their senior year rolls around, they're a completely competitive candidate for even the most selective universities on their list. And with our rising seniors, of course, or current seniors, I guess, now that school's started, we're helping them guide them through college applications so nothing is missed and helping them brainstorm the perfect college essays based on the hundreds of effective ones we've seen. And essentially, we work with students on a one-to-one capacity. So we don't do group calls at all or anything like that. We definitely don't follow a typical Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 schedule at all. We're working nights, weekends, and in various time zones whenever it's convenient for a student. A student from the last webinar we did is in Singapore, and we're working together all the time on his essay. So we fill in really every gap that may arise from a busy high school counselor who might not have time to help every single student with all of these big items for every student on their list because they have hundreds of students. And also, we really also haven't met many high school counselors who proofread students' essays on a late Saturday night or hop on a Zoom call to help a student submit an application at 10 p.m. And that's exactly where we step in. Our company is really unique because we accept only a limited number of students for each counselor, so we can completely focus on our students' individual needs and even work with medical school applicants and grad school applicants too. And we have a focus on highly selective college admissions and direct medical programs, which are also called BSMD programs. Our counselors also meet regularly to share advice about our students. So the cool thing is when you work with one of us, you work with all of us. So you're not stuck with one person, you're also getting advice from everybody else too. And Lindsay, if you want to switch to the next slide, if you find yourself really wanting more personal advice after this and really want us to look over your resume or your essay ideas, we've created a special just for you to utilize. I probably work with about 10 to 12 seniors each year in addition to my underclassmen. And every year, the students that sign up with MoonPrep during the summer before their senior year or earlier, sophomore, junior year, they can immediately start working on their Common App applications, their activities and their essays, and they're really able to enjoy their senior year a little bit more. And then we always have a few students join us in October with only a couple weeks away before their major deadlines. And then they have to start from scratch on the exact same items, and they're just super stressed. They're juggling their tough senior year classroom or classes, and honestly, their essays really do suffer for it, and so do their college acceptances in the end. So just don't be them. Contact us after this webinar to help create the perfect personal statement, which is what our package is all about. Our special is all about this month. So we want to help you craft the perfect personal statement. We'll be doing a brainstorming Zoom call with an extended outline of full paragraphs. Is not like a little outline where it says like talk about grandma. Like we have everything written out. Like what are you gonna cover? Every little aspect. So all you have to do is just literally expand it out a little bit into your own words. And then we'll have a content and structure editing session, helping guide and shape the structure of the essay, honestly, just getting the full story on the page. And then we'll have another final editing session focusing more on word count and actual sentence phrasing, really just kind of like honing down and perfecting that final product before it's submitted. But that's really all I have. I know it expires on September 8th, so please just don't forget, reach out to us right after the webinar.
Yes. Okay. Let me keep going. So let's jump into our content. So first, before we can kind of understand how college admissions have changed this year, it's important to understand what admission officers cared about pre-COVID. So a recent report by the National Association for College Admissions Counseling laid out what colleges think are the most important factors in college admissions. So as you can see here, grades in all courses and specifically grades in college prep courses were the things that they cared about a lot. That's really not going to change from here on out. They're still going to be looking really closely at how well you're doing in your courses. But what is changing is this fourth one, the admissions test scores. Schools like Brown, Cornell, Columbia, Dartmouth, the UCs, they've all gone test optional. And we'll put a link in the chat so that you can see which schools have gone test optional, test blind. But it's really important to remember that each school is handling SAT, ACT tests differently. So some have gone completely test blind. For example, like the UCs, they won't be accepting any scores at all. It can't play a factor in admissions at any point. You can't even submit. Whereas other schools are test optional, which means that if you submit your score, they will look at it. But if you don't, they won't hold it against you because they understand that maybe you couldn't take the test for whatever reason. And if you aren't submitting your scores, that means other things like your AP test scores, your class rank, your positive character attributes, your essay writing, even your extracurriculars will be weighted a little bit more heavily. And so this actually might be a good year for like bubble students. So students who are just below the average GPA or SAT, ACT score, because if your SAT or ACT score maybe wasn't that great that you did have, you don't have to be submitting it. You can kind of be deciding from school to school maybe which one might be best for you. For other years, it's important. It's like a really great time for you to be able to show off your positive character attributes and experiences. And I do see we have a question about merit scholarships and BSMD programs. So for BSMD programs, absolutely, the SAT, ACT scores are still submitted or still required, even if the school is test optional. So if you are an aspiring BSMD direct medical student, you do have to be able to take the test um, and submit it into the school, into the program. And then Michaela actually is going to talk about scholarships, so I'll let her go over that later on. But at least for BSMD programs, know that nothing has changed. It's still required, and it will probably continue to be required, for the foreseeable future as well. Let's see. I think I'm all done, Michaela.
Okay. So basically, I just wanted to cover real quick do you want to go back a slide real quick? So I don't, I'm sorry. So I want to cover one little thing about being test optional. I know like many schools are going test optional, and a lot of students are thinking like that's the route for them because it's been so tough to get those scores. But unfortunately, I just want you all to know that it's very hard for that pretty much that will only affect admission. So you'll be getting in without a test score, but then after that, it's really hard for the university to do anything else, like give you a merit scholarship or to accept you to their more selective programs like BSMD or even engineering programs, like just a basic mechanical engineering program. Most of them have thresholds for ACT, SATs, and they still need to see those. So if just know that if you're submitting a test optional application and just deciding to not take the tests altogether because of all these complications, which we totally understand, it just simply means that you're probably forfeiting the option to get any merit scholarships because those are seriously only based again on merit. It's just GPA, ACT, SAT. That's the only numbers they have. And so it can't only be based on GPA. I'm sure some schools will be trying to adjust this, but just know that if you are submitting a test optional application, that you're likely going to be paying full price at that college. And that's just that's just the answer to what will be happening, which I mean, like, I guess more colleges are fine with that because they'll have more costs to recoup with everything that happened this past year. So they're fine with getting more money. But just know that that's kind of something that's probably in the works if you're submitting a test optional application or test optional school, basically. And I did see another viewer previously asked where we're located. And I know we covered that just like with one word in the intro, but so we work virtually. So our counselors are all over the country. Honestly, we're pretty spread out. We're all like at least 12 hours away from each other. And so we're all in different time zones. And I know the company is kind of based in Atlanta, but we're all over. So we work remotely. So you can be anywhere and sign up. Okay. So I saw so test optional means less financial aid. Essentially, yeah, merit-based scholarships are simply based on the numbers and without submitting an SAT, ACT score, they don't have the numbers to provide a merit-based scholarship. So you're still probably for sure eligible for like their leadership scholarships or their diversity scholarships and different things like that, but their merit-based scholarships, there will be like fewer available to test optional unless like you can, prove that you have a 4.0 GPA. I mean, like some schools might be figuring out a way to do it just on GPA, but the majority of them have not made that switch. So yeah, simply test optional applications mean less money to go to school overall. So just be careful, think about things, think about financials as you move forward. But I would love to kind of comment on the big change for this year on the Common App, which is the inclusion of a COVID question, a specific essay devoted to discuss a student's the impact on the from the pandemic. So this year, high school junior students have honestly had every element of their college admissions disrupted by the pandemic. So it really should be no surprise that COVID would filter in and invade the college applications too. And that happened when the Common App announced that they are adding a question specifically about students' experiences during COVID. So what we do know is that this essay will be brief with a maximum word count of 250 words. It's really just like a long paragraph to explain the impact on your life that the pandemic has had. This short essay will be located in the additional information section of the Common Application, and it is completely optional. So essentially, this essay is allowing you the space to talk about the impact the pandemic has had on your life. So the big question is, why was this essay added? So what are they trying to do with this essay? Well, the addition of this question to the Common App does a few pretty great things. Number one, it allows students to focus their main personal statement on other deep topics that shaped their character. And it also preserves the space to separately address ways that you handled the challenges of the pandemic so that aspect of your life is not lost. So they don't want you to completely forget about the pandemic so that you have to focus on other things from your application, but they're giving you space to specifically address that so that you don't feel like you have to talk about it in other parts of your application. So that's actually a really great thing. The great news is that colleges genuinely want to know who you are as the person behind the application and the essays. So now you have a whole essay space, an additional essay space to share everything you want them to know about you without feeling forced to talk about it in the rest of your application. So here's the deal. Who should be writing this essay? Who should be submitting it since it's optional? Who should attempt this? If the challenges that you faced could match the challenges faced by every other student in your class, like difficulty submitting assignments online or frustration over canceled SATs, you should really consider skipping this essay because it's likely that just recounting these kind of smaller irritants when there's larger, deeper topics out there is going to seem really redundant to the admissions department because they're going to read a lot of them. So not putting yourself into the pile of one of the people that's just going to be submitting essays saying the exact same thing as everybody else is already going to make you kind of have a plus in the admissions department. But however, if the pandemic altered your life in a very major way, which I have examples, of course, this essay is made for you. So did the quarantine affect your parents' employment? Did a family member contract the disease and your life has been altered that way? Did you have an immediate family member in healthcare who maybe risked their lives on the front line in those early days when it was super, super scary, and they're still continuing to risk their lives now? Did you have a family member that you were seeing this in action kind of on the front lines? Did a learning disability greatly impair your ability to adjust to the new online learning style when quarantine hit and all the classes went online? Were you suddenly placed in a parental role with your younger siblings as your parents worked from home? Were you, maybe tutoring or helping your younger siblings learn? Did you maybe have limited access to home computers due to multiple siblings, also learning from home or your parents working from home? All of these things would be big things to talk about, but simply being like, I submitted an assignment and it didn't go through, I didn't get graded for a week and I was scared isn't quite enough to write a whole essay about it because so many students are going to be talking about the same thing. So admissions counselors want to know the major ways that you were affected by the quarantine to evaluate your application with all the facts. They want to give you a fair chance. So if your grades have been affected and things, this is the time to talk about it and why. But they also want to know how you reacted to these changes, these challenges, and also see how you persevered. What did you do? So above all, keep the essay focused on you and your response to the circumstances you found yourselves in, and not on your parents or your classmates or your teachers. Keep it on you and what you did with the situation. Okay, so lastly, how should you approach this essay? So what's a good way of writing this? Beyond the ways in which the pandemic affected your life, keep in mind that colleges always want to know how you showed leadership and creativity in the face of adversity. So this is not a time to just complain about what happened. This is the time to show them, like, what did you do? They want to see leadership and creativity and perseverance. That's the point of kind of like all of their essays. So this one is no different. If you're answering this essay prompt, make sure that you can also describe your positive response to the situation you were placed in this year. So I have an example, of course. I'll never not give someone an example. A student I worked with this past year included a leadership project on her Common App activities called the Quilts of Valor. She hosted workshops teaching younger students how to sew quilts to honor veterans, which is like a gift from civilians. So she just kind of hosted workshops, and she really talked about how she loved education and how she just loved just kind of the pastime of quilting in general and being able to have like an end goal with her quilts too. She also mentions this briefly in her main personal statement as one of the reasons she was drawn to education as a major. So, what is she writing about in her COVID-19 essay on the Common App? Well, she's describing how her past experience with sewing quilts allowed her to recognize a need for masks in her community and produce them with materials that she already had on hand in her craft space, and also at a faster rate than anyone else or anywhere else in her vicinity. Her past leadership experience helped her organize when she was organizing workshops for the quilts, also allowed her to swiftly organize her past and present students remotely to begin producing masks for those in need. So she essentially uses her 250 words to support other items in her resume, and also demonstrates her depth of character, her fast action, and using every tool at her disposal for the benefit of others. So honestly, like, what college wouldn't admit her? She's literally just checking the boxes of all the things, like, oh, here's how all the things on my resume also helped me like do something great in the pandemic. So it's a slam dunk for colleges. So that's really what you want to be doing with your your Common App essay, this extra essay. So honestly, just use this essay space to describe how you triumphed in this challenging time, and then the essay will be a true asset to the rest of your application. Demonstrate how you used your skills to shine light in a dark time, but remember, keep the pandemic content contained within this essay prompt, unless it truly has a giant tie to other things on your resume, and allow your other essays to focus on allowing the admissions team to know you beyond the pandemic, because they create a space for it. So use it wisely, and allow your application to shine lights on other things that you've done as well.
Perfect. And I'm going to quickly add to that as well. Your high school counselor will be also submitting I think it's 550 word written response that will go over like the big systematic changes that the schools might have done. So if they went, pass fail, if they went virtual, if they went hybrid. So that information, like Michaela said, will be told to the schools, because the high school council will write one essay or one prompt for every single student. So it won't contain any personal information about students, but kind of just the overall general changes within the school. So that's kind of an important thing to remember. You don't want to be spending your precious 250 words on something that the high school counselor probably has already written.
Right.
And so you can also ask the high school counselor to see it if you want to make sure that you're not being like repetitive. They will be able to share that with you as well.
They're just trying to like get all the information to judge your application fairly. If for some reason a teacher like quit in the middle of pandemic or something like that, and like everybody's tests went like skewed like crazy because there was math teachers like judging or grading English exams and things like that, like they're going to have that information. So they want to like evaluate you fairly. Yeah. So it's just giving them the tools to do that.
Perfect. Okay. And then kind of non-COVID related things we'll also talk about, because even before the pandemic hit, there was actually a lot of big changes that were going to affect college admissions. And then now with the pandemic, it just kind of added on to it. So these are kind of non-COVID related changes that have occurred kind of behind the scenes as well, but just kind of important for everyone to know about. So there was a recent change in the NACAC, the National Association of College Counseling. They changed their code of ethics and professional practices. So before the changes were made, colleges were not allowed to do the following. So they couldn't offer incentives like larger financial aid packages or priority housing to applicants who applied under the early decision program. They could not recruit a student once they had submitted a deposit to another institution. And they also could not convince previous applicants or prospects to transfer to the school unless the student first inquired about transferring. But now all of those rules have been flipped on their head, and the provisions have been reversed. So with these changes, it's completely altered the rules of competition among colleges. And so we might not see these changes really taking effect right now, but I think in the future we'll really start to see a huge change. So kind of like that calendar and the deadlines that college admissions officers and students alike have been following for years might not be as relevant. And with the removal of these three provisions, both the college admissions process and students will be affected. And it is, kind of a turbulent year already, and so it's going to be hard to predict what this fallout will be. We might see recruiting kind of carrying on into the late summer, with students fielding offers from different institutions and looking for the best deal. So you might be able to hold out and get a better financial aid offer. No guarantees though. And it could also change when what students get for applying early. So similar rules will still apply. Students who apply under the binding early decision application are going to be obligated to attend unless due to financial reasons. But the benefit of applying under, I guess the benefit too will stay the same, that you'll see a higher acceptance rate. So for example, Brown University accepted 18.2 of its early applicants, but out of the regular decision pool, it was 4.8. So you do get a pretty significant boost. But now students might receive additional incentives and benefits for applying early and committing to a school before, January. So for example, last year, High Point University tried to entice its students to apply early decision by giving them priority in choosing housing and classes. They could move in a day earlier than regular pool applicants. So these types of incentives used to be barred, but now they might become more commonplace. Every university might not kind of incorporate these changes, but it might be something that you see in the future. And I think will kind of affect younger students even more so than the students this year. But the good news is that students might benefit, because the whole reason for these changes was to help protect the choices of students. So it's possible that students who are willing to wait before committing to a college will get a bigger discount from the school. So as the deadline for the start of the new school year starts to loom, schools might become more desperate to fill their class and try and recruit students a little bit more heavily. And so a financial package that turns a substantial tuition discount, that offers a substantial tuition discount, might be hard for some families to turn down. So that could kind of come into play in the future. But those were all changes that were not COVID related. We'll still see kind of a similar timeline. So enrollment deposits will still be non-refundable. They might be a little bit more now because schools don't want to lose their students from a financial aid perspective, a better offer from another school. So tuition enrollment deposits might be a little bit higher, but students will still have to commit to a school by May 1st. They might be able to change their schools after that, but they'll still have to be committing to that school to guarantee their spot on May 1st. So we won't see any changes in that aspect. And if you guys have any questions, we are here to answer. So I see we do have some Q&A that have come in. But if you have any more questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A and we'll answer them. It doesn't have to be anything about these particular topics we covered. It can be anything about college admissions, writing the personal statement, scholarships, any questions you guys might have, or even like activities that you can be doing during the COVID-19 pandemic safely. So we can cover anything you might have questions about. So feel free to type those questions in the chat. And feel free to also check out our resources. So we have a ton of free resources on our page. So if you go to moonprep.com/resources, I'll send that link in the chat as well. We have a lot of different resources for students. So we've got like a 55-page college essay blueprint that you can see down below. We've got a lot of online classes that are all free that help you write the personal statement, find scholarships, write the supplemental essays as well, interviews. We cover a lot of different material. And we also just have some more general, like a checklist for juniors, some ideas from there. And we also have a really active blog, so feel free to check that out as well. We'll send that in the chat too, just so you can stay up to date on any news. And you can subscribe to our blog on that page as well. So we'll send that in the chat. But I think for now, we'll keep answering some questions. So
yeah, just before we jump into some questions, if this webinar left you feeling like you could really use some individualized advice to achieve your own academic goals, or if you have really specific questions, now is really the time to reach out to us. So before we get honestly like really busy in October with a bunch of deadlines, so contact us after this webinar to craft the perfect personal statement or just get an advice session with us. That is also on the table. If you just need an hour advice session, that's always available. But again, just as a reminder, if you want our advice on your essays, this special will include a brainstorming Zoom call with extended outline and full paragraphs. And again, this just isn't any old outline. Most students who sign up with this package, pretty much every student that has signed up with this package has walked away with an outline over 350 words, which is over half of the full essay word count. So all they have to do is just expand it out. And then we'll also have a content and structure editing session helping guide and shape the structure of the essay, just getting that story on the page so it's a full story and ready to be edited down. And then we'll have another final editing session focusing on word count and actual sentence phrasing, crafting the words that you've written into a beautiful story that's ready to go. So I guess now is really the time for all of the questions. So we have a few minutes left before the hour is up, even though we've really only been doing this for 40 minutes. But we're going to answer all your questions now. So send them in. Now is Q&A time. So first of all, I see one that said, how will this all affect international students? So I think this was like back when we were talking about merit scholarships. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but in general, there are fewer academic scholarships available for international students. Most international students are paying full tuition anyway. There are a few colleges that do a merit scholarship. So in general, international student admissions is not really going to be affected by the test optional, other than the fact that their tests they have to send in are different. So honestly, it's just what I have to say about international students is it's just going to be dependent on the schools on your list and what their policies are. It's going to be so individualized. Every college is going to be handling this different. I know that like some colleges are allowing international students to take full online remote classes for a year and not come to the States at all for their first year, or I guess not first year, but any year. And so that's going to be something that's probably going to be in effect, is just, no international students on campus this year. But again, like I really, really just recommend researching what the schools on your list how their reactions are going to be to this, because I mean, I've been reading articles and things like that, but I don't know everything for every single college. The ones I have read, that they're just not allowing international students to come here. They're doing all online classes. And also the schools I'm familiar with just didn't have merit scholarships available for international students anyway. But if you meant something else, please write it in.
Perfect. And I see some questions about like on college websites. Will there be info about merit scholarships, about test optional policies, about need-based? Yeah, that is definitely something you can find on the college websites, hopefully. If you can't find it, that would be something that you should be calling the school individually about as well. You can be talking to someone, you can be emailing them. A lot of schools are kind of changing things quite quickly, and as policies have changed, as you know, the situation has changed. So I think it's best to reach out to the school directly. Don't rely on like a third party article or list. Go directly to the website of the school for any information about test optional policies, about financial aid, everything. Best to go right to the source. And I see also there was a question about Ivy Leagues going test optional. So all of the Ivy Leagues have gone test optional. Princeton was like the last one before, they also went test optional. So they all don't require you to submit. But that being said, you are more than, welcome to submit those scores if you are within the average of the accepted students. So if you have a great SAT or ACT score, like go ahead and still submit it. If the school is test optional, it won't hurt you. It could, help you as well. I'll let Michaela go to the next one. Do you have one answer?
I saw one about Ivy Leagues that are restrictive.
Yeah, that's in the chat.
Yes. There's not a lot of restrictive early action schools. I know like Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, Georgetown, and Notre Dame. But
and this year too,
out there for sure.
Yeah, Princeton this year got rid of its restrictive early action. And I'm not positive about the rest of them, to be honest, because this year they just wanted to have just one deadline. It's a little bit easier on them. But the reason why it's restrictive early action too, I think, and not early action is just because you can only apply to one restrictive early action. So it kind of helps them tone down the number of applications they get in that cycle as well. Makes it a little bit easier for them. And there's a ton of EA colleges as well. Like almost every state college has an early action deadline for the most part. So you'll be able to see there's just tons of options. In early action, you can apply to as many of those as you want.
Okay, yes, and I saw something. I saw a Q&A. My son is a sophomore. What can he do to prepare himself? Well, let me tell you. So we have full webinars based specifically on this, as well as an article. I am trying to find it right now for you that I wrote for Niche. Let me just, I always have it. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to find it. It is, and I'm going to send you the link to it because I want you to have all of the things. There we go. Alrighty, found it, and I am sending it to you in, oh, there we go, come on.
Yeah, because if you think about it too, like there's a lot of things that you can still be doing even though COVID is going on. In the article that Michaela is going to send is that like a lot of ideas, but it's still important to like kind of be building up those positive character attributes. So like leadership, taking initiative throughout like the COVID, those are all definitely things that he can be doing right now to prepare. So even if he's not able to take the SAT or ACT, that's fine. Just continuing to do well throughout the pandemic, I think is going to be really key.
Yes, I have so many suggestions in these 2 articles that I researched for like years. No, I'm just kidding. And I mean, literally just what I recommend, this is like the most basic advice, but it truly is the easiest thing to do right now is to look at your resume. Just look at your resume, see the items on it, and just see if there's a way to take things a step further. So, for like, let's use that student that I was talking about with the Quilts of Valor. What could she do? Well, if she was just at home and obviously, like, if she's done with her mask project and everything like that, she's looking at her skill set. Okay, I've done these quilts of honor. I know how to sew, all these things. Okay, well, what could she do that just shows colleges that she just could take things to the next level? Well, she could easily self-publish a book that's like the basics of quilting, and then she could develop a website and have even just like little virtual workshops where she's teaching students kind of like the relaxing, stress relieving um, virtues of quilting or crocheting, and then she's helping students mental anxiety and things like that during COVID. So just like look at your skill set and just say, how do I take this to the next level? Can I do a workshop? Can I host something? I know students who are doing, they're really interested in robotics, and they're hosting like Zoom meetings that anybody can join, that they're helping students, like learn, get into robotics or build a robot from home so they have something on their resume. If you're, I think I said this on another webinar, but if you have done Model UN for, as many, so many years, then you can always self-publish a book that's like the basics of joining Model UN. What do you need to know before your first, I'm blanking on what's the event, convention,
Like
the first
conference?
event,
I don't
yeah,
know.
conference, there we go. I'm blanking, like what do you need to know before your first conference? So just anything you can do to take it to the next level is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of activities too that you can be doing virtually as well. So like Michaela said, all of those things don't require in-person activities at all. And so, as a sophomore, he could maybe also start a like tutoring group, a virtual tutoring group within his own like cohort of friends as well. A lot of parents are struggling with teaching their children the material online, helping with the homeschooling, the virtual learning, I guess I should say. So that could maybe even be something that he could get started on right now.
Mhm.
Reaching out to neighbors, seeing how he can be helping other people in his community. We've done a lot of, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, a lot of interviews with admissions officers in the past, and all of them have said kind of similar things, that they're going to be looking at how students have spent this time in quarantine. So not kind of just sitting back and doing like TikTok dances all day, but identifying that need in the community, whatever it might be, and finding a way to solve the problem. And
Yeah.
ultimately that's kind of the best way. I think we also wrote an article about making a difference in the pandemic. I can send that over.
And that's while you're looking for that. I mean, that's exactly just on a very simple level. Just, yeah, I'm going to start a tutoring, like a little group tutoring session with my friends. They're all in these classes, but also what can I do for their younger siblings that are struggling? And then that immediately shows leadership and organization on a college application. Just shows that you care and that you're doing something, and you're not just like all about self-preservation. You just care about the world around you, and it goes a long way.
It really does. And like we said, it doesn't have to be a life-changing activity that you're doing. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world. Small actions make a big difference. Those positive attributes that you're building, that you're growing as a human being, is important, because colleges want to see someone who is productive, who is taking initiative, who is making a difference in their community. So now is really the best time to get started on that, as well as continuing to take challenging courses, and
Mhm.
still striving to do well even throughout the pandemic.
And if your son is a sophomore, this is a great time to get in touch with us. We'd love to help guide his resume to make sure he's maximizing his entire potential, and we're not missing one thing that he could potentially add to his resume based on it's in his interests. So that's our specialty. We'd love to help.
Yes,
And
exactly.
okay. So I have a question about, I want to know how financial aid policies will be affected, not merit scholarships, but how the pandemic may affect such universities. Honestly, it's truly going to be based on the actual individual universities. So create your college list if you haven't already, and then honestly just do research. There like a lot of there's some colleges that aren't having the best response, and I'm not going to like sugarcoat it. Some of them aren't having the best response on how they're handling international students or financial aid for international students. Like, it's just not, they're not working well with it. And so maybe that affects the colleges on your list. Maybe you'll be doing research and finding other colleges to like supplement in that match what you need as far as financial aid. It's just going to be like, yeah, unless I'm misunderstanding the question. Do you have anything to add, Lindsay?
Yeah, I think it's really going to be school specific. And so it's really hard to know, like, give one umbrella statement, one blanket statement about financial aid policies.
Yeah.
So it will be kind of interesting to see what happens in the future. So yeah, I think reaching out to the school specifically will kind of be the best way to get those answers. Sorry.
It's going to be rough for
Yeah.
international students this year, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I do see we have one question about admission for international students in general. So that kind of ties into it. I think it's going to be harder this year to be admitted for international students. There's been a lot of like visa changes, things that are allowed. So policies kind of on the bigger scale, unrelated to schools, have really been affected. And just like the travel ordinances, travel bans, we're going to go with that. Travel bans also kind of might play an effect. So it's hard to say exactly what's going to happen for international students this year. But my guess is it will be a little bit tougher this year.
It's just going to be rough.
Yeah. It's rough for everyone, and international students, I think, are kind of getting the shortest end of the stick as well.
Yeah. We're sorry.
Yeah, we're really
I wish we could do something. Okay, well, thank you all for spending your evening with us. I know it was a little bumpy in the beginning, so we're so thankful that you stuck with us. And please get in touch with us if you want our advice on literally anything regarding college admissions. We're excited to help you and help you reach your academic goals.
Yes, yeah, and I'll send my email in the chat right now. And so everyone, if you want to take advantage of the offer, you can feel free to reach out to me. It does expire on the 9th. So just send me an email, and then we can get you started working on that personal statement. If you're a rising senior and you haven't gotten started yet, we cannot stress to you enough. Now is really good
now.
Start. Yeah.
You've got 30 days.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And I do see we do have another question about the SAT. Is it going to change? Is it still going to be obligatory? Like in the future, like for international students in general, or for regular people? Not regular people. Domestic. Yeah, our domestic students. It's kind of hard to say for that as well. I'm not positive if it is required for international students. Do you know, Michaela?
So oh man, this is like reaching way back in my memory banks. This is hard. They like, yes, SAT, ACT was accepted, but also like the merit or the standardized testing of individual countries as well was accepted. But then the language test, the TOEFL,
Yes,
that was a big one that would be potentially affected if they're not available to take it online. Um, I'm just trying to remember like how much was that required?
Hmm.
Like how much weight was put on that? Because I worked for a rolling admission Big Ten university, like public university, so it wasn't as selective as like the Ivies. And I just don't. I think we were way more like relaxed on the standardized tests that we accepted. I don't think it didn't have to be the SAT. I remember getting like scores in from all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
So I think like if you're an international student, and again, like you're applying to like the rolling admissions, like public universities, I think you have more options than the SAT.
Yeah. And I think that language test, I think, is still going to be required regardless, just because it's kind of the
Oh.
standard too. But for the SAT or ACT, I'm did a quick little internet search, and it does seem that a lot of them are test optional for
Mhm.
international students. So that at least that front is not a concern.
Yeah.
But if you come from like or went to like a non-English speaking country, if you're from a non-English speaking country, or you didn't go to a English high school,
Mhm.
then you will probably have to submit the language tests.
It's like a bigger deal,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Yeah. And with that,
Perfect. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, you can email us directly and we can answer them. You can also schedule a call to learn more about our services. So it would be like a one-on-one call. We walk through, kind of what we did at the beginning from start to finish, how we can help our students prepare for college admissions. And we work with students of all ages, so it's not too early to get started. Especially if you kind of have your eye on those more competitive programs, it really is the best time to get started right now. So I'll actually send one more link with the scheduling link, so you can make a meeting one-on-one and learn more about our services from there.
perfect.
Um,
Okay. Well,
Perfect.
thank you all for spending your evening with us and hope to hear from you soon.
Yes. Bye, everyone.